Charlie Gatehouse lived a long life. He had children and grandchildren after them. And when he retired from work, he used to sit on the steps of his hut on the foreshore at the bottom of Shakespeare Cliff and watch his grandchildren play. He listened to their voices, he watched them running across the sand, and he thought about how he had once played there too as a child. But Charlie Gatehouse wanted more for his grandchildren than he had ever had. He wanted them to go to school and do well there. And the only way to school was up the cliff. In those days, there was a narrow, zigzag path that led all the way to the top. There was a rail to hold on to. But when the wind whipped and the birds fluttered and cried out, it was hard going. Each morning, old Charlie Gatehouse gathered all his grandchildren together. He took a long length of rope and he roped them all together. Then he tied the end of it round his own waist and he led them up that path. And when they got to the top, he set them free, sent them running on to school. "Now then, you lot," he said sternly, "work hard and I'll be waiting for you here 3:30. And on the dot at 3:30, old Charlie Gatehouse would be standing at the top of the cliff, waiting for his grandchildren, and they ran towards him, gathered round him, all chattering at the same time, and he'd tease them and ask them questions. "What have you torn your shirt for? You haven't been fighting, have you? Let me see your fingers. Inky fingers, that's a good sign. That means you've been studying hard." And then he roped them up again, and he led them all the way down. And on the way down he would point out the nesting birds, or the falcon swooping high overhead, or the fox picking its way along the cliff face. And when they got down, he untied them, set them free, and they ran across the beach. Now one Saturday, Charlie Gatehouse was sitting on his step, watching the sea and listening to the sound of his grandchildren's voices echoing everywhere. Suddenly he saw they were running towards him. Grandad, we saw a whale." "A whale? In the sea?" "Yes, Grandad, there's a monster there. There's a sea monster there." "A sea monster? You've got imaginations, children. That's good." Then he had a thought. "Come here, children, come here. Do you want me to show you something even better than that? Would you like that?" "Better than a sea monster, Grandad?" Yeah. And they all gathered round him. "Now, you lot," he said, "I'm going to set you a test. Don't worry, it's not like a test at school. This is a different test. I want you to run everywhere and find the most beautiful and the most precious thing that you can find. Then bring it back here." Grandad Gatehouse scratched his head, pushing his hat back a little bit, and he said, "And the person who brings me the best thing, they're going to win a prize." "What prize, Grandad? What prize?" "Oh, you'll see. You've got 1 hour now," he shouted at them as they all scattered across the beach and the foreshore. 1 hour. And Charlie Gatehouse watched as they all ran, looking and studying and searching for things in the grass and the sand, by the cliff face. The hour went quickly. And then they were all running back. Grandad, look what I've got. Look at this, Grandad. Come on then," he said. "Put them in my hat." And he held it out. "Look, Grandad, I've got a flower." "Oh, that's a samphire. That's a precious flower, love. That's lovely." "And Grandad, look, I've got a stone. I think it's an emerald." "An emerald, is it?" "Maybe it is. Or maybe it's a piece of green glass worn by the sea. But it's still beautiful either way. Put it in my hat." Look, Grandad," said another child. I've got a skull. Look, it's tiny." "Oh," says Grandad Gatehouse, "that's a vole, son. That's the head of a vole. Look how fine and small it is." And they all filled his hat with the things that they'd found. And they looked at him solemnly. "Grandad, who's won?" Then Charlie Gatehouse said, "Wait a moment, somebody's missing, isn't there? 1, 2... There's little Don. He's not here. Where's little Don?" And the children looked around. "There he is, Grandad. He's coming now." Little Don was running towards them across the beach. He was hunched up, holding something against his chest. And when he ran nearer, they all saw that his face was flushed, and there were tears trembling in his eyes. "Come here, Little Don," said Grandad Gatehouse. "What's the matter, son?" And Little Don said, "Oh, Grandad, look, I found this." And he opened his hand, and there was a little bird there. "It was lying at the bottom of the cliff, Grandad. I think it's dead." "Let me have it, Little Don, let me see." And Grandad Gatehouse took that tiny little bird. He could feel that it was warm, and its feathers stirred a little bit in the breeze. And old Charlie Gatehouse could feel the bird's heart beating fast against his fingers, and he said, "Oh, Little Don, this bird isn't dead. No, it's just tired or hungry. It probably fell down from where it was perching on the cliff. It's a starling, Little Don. They fly long distances. They fly a long way to get here. And then when it gets cold, they fly a long way somewhere else. It's just lying down, pretending to be dead. Look, children, gather round, watch." And they all crowded around old Grandad Gatehouse, and slowly he lifted up his palm and blew on the bird. And suddenly, the bird shook itself. Its wings whirred, and it shot high up, darted away, and the children ran, trying to follow. "Look, Grandad, it's flying higher and higher. I can't see it now, Grandad." "Oh, it's up there," says Grandad Gatehouse. "Can you see it, children? Follow. Look, Grandad, it's with other birds as well." "Of course it's with other birds now," says Grandad Gatehouse. "Birds have families just like we do. They have parents and children and grandchildren just like us." The children looked at him, and they laughed with delight. And then they fell silent. "What is it, children?" Grandad, who's won the prize?" "Ah, yes, the prize," said Grandad Gatehouse, scratching his head again. "Well," he said, looking into his hat, "there are lots of beautiful things here. The stone and the flower and the falcon's feather, you see that? And the vole's skull and this shell. Oh, so many wonderful things. But you know the most wonderful thing of all? It was when that little bird shook itself and flew away. And you all laughed from happiness, didn't you? Didn't you? Well, that was the best thing of all. Because the most beautiful thing of all, it's freedom. Do you see? The freedom to run here. The freedom to find whatever you can find. The freedom to go to school. And the freedom to play on the beach. And that's the best thing of all." "But Grandad," said the children, "who's won? What's the prize?" "Oh, but children," said Grandad Gatehouse, holding his hand. "Children, you've all won. And the prize, it's here. It's this place here. It's everything you can see. It's this world here. That's the prize. Go on, children. Run away now, my little birds. Fly away." The children looked at him solemnly for a while. Then one by one, they took the things from his hat and went running down the beach, chattering and laughing. And Grandad Gatehouse watched them run, and he thought to himself, "Yes, a long time ago, I was young once. I was, you know. I was."